What's up? What's up? How y'all feeling?
All right.
We chilling. I didn't even know how it looked in here. Look at y'all. We vibing. You got the iPhones out. Okay.
Let's do it. Okay, so like I said, I go by the name of JABARI, founder of R&B ONLY. It is with my pleasure, deep pleasure, to have Leon Thomas as the first artist doing Interlude with us. So one more time, make some noise, y'all, for Leon. And Leon, we were talking a little bit backstage about this, but you know, the first time that we ever interacted with each other was when you came to one of our shows in Atlanta, Georgia. Ty Dolla $ign brought you out. I want to make sure, hold on, how many of y'all, make some noise if you've been to an R&B only show before?
Woo!
You too, exactly. And let's just talk about that experience, man. Like, you know, the first time that we saw you was a few years ago, and it seemed like back then, nobody really knew your name. And now, things have completely changed in a few years, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been a journey, you know, traveling from, you know, being known for acting and producing and writing for other people. Artistry isn't an easy gig, but it was a really great opportunity to sign to Ty Dolla $ign and all of my family over at Motown. We've been definitely chipping away at this thing.
Man, you come from a musical background. You grew up in a musical family. Just talk about how, you know, the household having so much music around shaped your growth in your career.
Yeah, I come from a tribe of musicians. I feel like we speak through music, and music never felt like a job for me or a chore, even when I was practicing as a kid. I feel like my parents had pretty much a musical playground set up in the home, from a live drum set in the backyard shed to a recording studio in our downstairs living room and instruments all over the house. It just always felt like a part of my life, and it's why now at this stage I can really just express myself through it without feeling like any pressure. You know, it's really more like breathing than anything, you know.
Who do you think was the most supportive family member growing up?
You know, I'll say R.I.P. to my grandfather, John. You know, he's definitely always been my champion throughout my career. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of everything that he's accomplished, from singing opera at the Metropolitan Opera to being in Broadway plays like Hello, Dolly. You know, he was always very, very involved in just making sure I kept a level head on my journey up, you know?
Incredible, man, incredible. Now, speaking of, you know, family members, this person it's not a person, but it's your dog, right?
Yeah, my dog. No, that's my family. That's my son.
Okay,
that's my son, man.
So your dog was a heavy inspiration for the album, man. Talk a little bit about, you know, what type of inspiration did you pull from your pet?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go from the beginning. So my ex got me a dog for my birthday, and you know, at first I was like, man, I don't have time for a dog. That's like a whole kid at this point, but over the years, I really grew to love this guy, and as I was writing my record at my house, you know, I started noticing the similarities between us two. They say, like, after a while, your dog starts kind of acting like the owner, you know? I was, like, seeing, like, myself in him, and I figured that was a really cool metaphor. I had recently just watched the Elvis Presley biopic, and a couple months before that was working with George Clinton, and there was all of these dog themes just like coming up in my life, and I just decided, you know what, let me use the inspiration, and Mutt was born.
Now, how early in the Mutt album did you have the Mutt song?
I had the Mutt record towards the tail end of the creative process. Originally, the album was called The Inventor, and I had this whole script written around it, and I was doing all this extra shit. But I think at a certain point, I had to really just come from a vulnerable place, and Mutt was the beginning of me just becoming brutally honest, you know?
Yeah. There's so much different types of records on the project, and we're gonna get into the deluxe later, but I wanna start with just the Mutt album.
Yeah.
What do you think, you know, was so special about that album that it was able to cut through some of the noise? You know, you got a lot of critical acclaim for this project. I think recently BET Best New Artist nomination.
Yeah.
Make some noise.
Yeah. Ooh, woo.
What do you think about the album that was really able to cut through and connect with fans?
You know, that's a hard question to answer because I think we can act like we know as artists like exactly what did it, but I feel like I'm coming from a place of true vulnerability, and I think I finally got to a place in my life where, you know, I was really expressing more than just one side of my emotions. I was really going through the entire spectrum of how I may have been feeling at that time period, and I think that was an amazing process to see a record with energy, you know, really lock into the clubs. That was when I realized people were tapping in with me. I would go to the club and they would play like Sexy Red, and then MUTT would come on. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. And people in LA was dancing. I'm like, y'all don't do that. What's going on? Like, what's up? So I figured maybe we might have something going on, you know?
Yes, that's an accomplishment in
It's
itself.
a big deal.
For sure. I want to dig deeper into your inspirations, right? Because you know you've cited inspirations like everyone from Prince all the way to like Black Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
talk about your inspirations and why some of those artists, you know, have inspired you.
Yeah, man. Well, you know, first off, my stepfather was in a lot of punk bands growing up. So he was also part of something called the Black Rock Coalition. So, you know, he was playing at spots like CBGB's, and, you know, he plays a rock guitar. He can play with his teeth and stuff. So growing up, I had just as much Led Zeppelin playing as I did Marvin Gaye and Neo and Usher and all the other stuff, you know. So it's a big influence for me, and around the time of making MUTT, I feel like the psychedelic nature of just a lot of my music definitely played into the inspiration that came from Black Sabbath, and then Prince. You know, I just feel like being a genre bender is something I really love to call myself as well, and you know, shout out to Prince for being the originator of that whole wave. You know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
What do you think about just genre in general, right? I know, you know, your typical genre would be R&B, but
Yeah.
what other genres do you feel like you make music that can fit into?
Jazz inspires me. Rock and roll, classic rock inspires me. Hip hop really inspires me. I mean, for years I was producing for major rappers like Drake and Lil Uzi and Young Thug, and you know, I'm definitely no stranger to an 808. So I feel like just the whole flow of how I'm able to kind of blend all of these genres into what I do is a real special thing, because it's not like I'm just trying it out. Like I'm a real student of the game.
Being a producer as well as an artist, what type of advantages does that give you in the creative process?
You know, I think what's great is that if I wanted to, I could just lock away in a foreign country and just make a whole album and come back. But I think because I'm a producer, I understand the art of collaboration and using wonderful co-writers and co-producers and even features is almost instruments in what I'm trying to create. Shout out in the building right now. I got my brother Freaky Rob in the building. He did MUTT. You heard? Where Freaky at? You heard? Nigga, stand up. We in church right now.
Big record.
Get that man a round of applause. You know what I mean?
Yes. So that's the producer on MUTT.
Yeah. It was a Freaky Rob and my boy David Phelps, you know? Yeah, man.
You know, let's dive deeper into that, Leon. So you've worked with so many artists, right? Producing, writing. What are some lessons that you've learned from artists that we may know? Like, what are some of the biggest lessons, and from who?
I think the biggest lesson I learned was around like 2020. I think I was working with Drake, and seeing how like his whole operation was a machine. There's just so many different people associated to different tasks. And I mean, he's the kind of person who could do a lot of things himself, but he chose to delegate certain tasks to certain people. And I found that to be really helpful, even in my own artist journey. And then even Ty Dolla $ign, when I was first signed to him, he told me amazing things about how to create a brand. You know, the whole thing is you got to be easy to draw as a brand. So like people should know what your look is and be able to make a cartoon of you, and it makes sense to anybody who knows what's going on. You know,
Makes sense.
yeah.
What are some of those tasks? When you talk about delegating tasks in the studio, go deeper on that. Like, what are some examples?
I feel like it's not even just about the studio. It's about the fact that you are a living, working, and breathing brand. And there's so many aspects around you that are very important, like the marketing, like really putting people in place in order to make sure that what you're doing feels just as big as a Pepsi or a McDonald's, colors that are associated to what you do, clothes that are associated to what you do. And it's the cultural aspect that really takes a lot of these big artists from the space of just being known to icon status, because there's a culture behind it, but that's a team sport. You gotta have a team involved for that. You know?
Yeah. Even with this brand, man, with R&B Only, right? There's a huge team behind the scenes that makes everything go. And you know, I'm sure there's some aspiring creatives, artists in the building. Make some noise if you're an aspiring artist.
Yeah. That's fine.
I think this is a good time where we could just, you know, I'll share some advice, and then maybe you just give some advice to the aspiring people who are like out there trying to get it as a creative and as an artist.
All right, let's have a real talk, right? Okay, bet. So, whenever I do my first meetings about a new album I'm doing, I do something called adult homework. You know, I lock into my crib for like 2 weeks, and I put together a whole pitch deck for what I want this album to be as a living brand, from the colors associated to it to visual concepts. I call it a concept Bible. You can go chapter to chapter from what the merch would look like. And it's not because that's the final say on what it's going to be, but I think it's important to be able to have your thoughts on paper in order to do meetings with people, or even if you have somebody just coming into your world, you want them to be able to easily access your thoughts in a way that's just very blunt and real. And I found that that's been a really helpful thing for me, seeing all of my concepts for MUTT turn into reality, from a lot of the black and white videos to the metaphor of the dog being something that people really latch onto. It's been such a cool process to come alive, and now I have paper proof that, you know, I was cooking that up. You heard? Like, it's a real thing. So I think anybody who's doing this, if you have a meeting, you know, yeah, you can sit there and over-explain if you want to, but have that on paper.
I love that, man. I think, you know, one thing that is really just like sales and selling yourself, being able to, if you have a team that's going out and selling you on behalf of you, then you got to be the best salesperson of yourself.
Give them a one sheet. Let them know what's going on. They got 95 other artists to worry about. You better find a way to make it easy to remember, you know?
Yep. And, you know, I'll piggyback off that. Guys, I think that for the aspiring creatives out there, right, you know, you may not have a major label behind you right now. You may not have a major team, but if you have just a friend that's supporting, you know what I mean, and your friend is really good at taking photos, really good at making videos, if their TikToks are awesome and yours are weak, like, link up with that person, and then as much as you're getting from them, try to offer them like 2 times whatever they're giving you. I think a big problem with today's like up and coming people is they're so hungry that they don't realize the more you give is the more you're gonna receive in this game. So just, you know, I would say that would be my thing. I would.
Oh, that's real. That's real.
All right, man. So I got some stuff on this sheet, man. We were talking about the artists that you have worked with.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you know, you're still early in your career, so give us a little bit of insight onto who you want to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's always about keeping things fresh for myself. So I'd love to work with artists like McGee. I'd love to work with Eddie Benjamin. I'd love to work with even some R&B legends like Beyonce. You know, I'm trying.
She's down the street right now.
Yeah. She is. I'm surprised y'all here right now. I feel like, what's going on? What's up, man? Nah, but I'm even trying to see if I can pull Andre 3000 out of retirement, man. I want to hear that man rap so goddamn bad. Like, please.
yeah, that would be fire, man. Nah, all of those names are incredible.
Nah, for sure.
Okay, so we got some dream collaborations, and What type of energy do you think that you'd bring to some of those legends, especially?
To be real, I don't know. I'm gonna just be myself and cook up, and if they love it, they love it, and if they don't, they don't. And I don't know, man. I think art is an interesting thing, you know. Sometimes when you're working with a big artist and maybe you're still building your brand and you're trying to figure things out, you can kind of put a lot of pressure on it. But I think all of us are just kind of swimming in a dark ocean trying to find something special,
Yeah.
you know. And music is the kind of thing that if you don't really know the person or know where they're trying to go, you know, it may not work on the first or two collabs, but I know for a fact that I have something special to offer, and as long as I'm staying true to my art, it's gonna land in the right place.
I think that's a gem, man. There's so many projects and things that on the first or second try, it might not even see the light of day.
Exactly.
But you got to keep going. So
Yeah, for sure.
even at the level that you're at, I think that's great insight.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
R&B Only Live is a show that will take you on a journey of R&B music from past, present, and future. We bring together the best of the genre with our all-female DJs, talented hosts, and electrifying energy all night long. Get tickets to the tour now at rnbonly.com/calendar and vibe with a room full of R&B lovers.
All right, man. Future goals. You know, like you've accomplished so much. This has been a standout year for you. So what are some things that you're trying to accomplish now?
Well, you know, I think I want to continue to drop amazing music, and really just pour into my team and really make this thing as big as we can make it. But I'm also building slowly, brick by brick, a bridge back to what I've done in the acting space. But I want to really approach it similar to Donald Glover and Issa Rae, and you know, be a creator and own more IP. That's the biggest thing. And the more money I make in music is the more I can own my IP, moving back over to that side. So
Absolutely.
I'm just saving up, man. You're going to see some stuff.
How has, the acting influenced the music, and how has the music influenced the acting?
It's one and the same, you
All
know.
art.
I think all art is just expressing an emotion, trying to get something across. I mean, we all deal with very similar things as human beings. So I think, I try not to make too much of a differentiation between the two. And that's something my grandfather always taught to me. You know, when I'm up there singing a song and it's about a breakup, I may live in that moment like I would as an actor who's going to do a scene about, leaving their lover. And I think that's the piece that makes me a little different on stage. And, I'm going to continue to just kind of tie the two together as much as I can.
That's dope, man. So, you've had success as an actor. You've had success now as a musician. How do you personally, though, define success?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, I really define success as balance because I've seen so many rich people unhappy. And I think, like, at the end of my process, not the end of my life, but at the end of, like, climbing this mountain, I just want to be able to have just as much stability as I do money or anything else. I feel like that's the piece, spiritually, to be in a really beautiful place at the end of this journey.
What does stability look like for you?
There's 5 pillars, financial stability, spiritual stability, and then, I really look at how I build in my work is something that's very important. Family, that's a big thing because I think a lot of people forget that pillar. As you keep going, you may miss a birthday or this or that, but there's little ways you can make people that you love feel special. And trying to keep that balance on this flow is really big to me.
Love that, man. Family over everything, man. That's.
Nah, it's real, man. It's real, and life is short.
Yes.
Things move fast.
Yes, for sure. You sound like a person who has learned a lot from maybe older people or mentors. Where does that come from? Like, do you have mentors? Do you? I know your grandfather, you said was big.
Yeah. I mean, I got some pretty famous mentors, man. Shout out to Babyface. He's like, That's my
Legend.
that's my Mr. Miyagi right there. You know what I'm saying?
What's a lesson that you've learned from
He's been
Babyface?
keeping it a bean from the jump. You know what? It was the absence of lessons. Sometimes I would like, I would come in talking all this, I want to change the way R&B is this and that. And he was like, nigga, just sing. Like, Bob, like, just, what are you doing, buddy? Like, just be yourself, have fun, And I think that's cool. Like, I mean, and also the biggest thing I learned from him was like talking your way into a record. We would spend sometimes like 2 hours just talking about our experience as humans. Or even when we worked with a new artist, like before we would even pick up a guitar or a laptop to start creating, how's your day? Who are you? Where are you from? What's going on? Are you in a relationship? Are you single? All of these things play into like what we can make that's going to be a potent piece of art that day. And I think without working with him, I wouldn't have really truly understood that that reference. Yeah.
Do you think that more artists need to study the greats and the veterans, especially in R&B?
Yeah. I mean, first off, I grew up where we had this thing called LimeWire, you heard? So, that's how I was hearing all my favorite old school albums because I was broke as shit. But, y'all got Spotify and Apple Music. You better look up some of these old records. You can listen to all of it and, tap in, really understand who's on the credits, what else they've worked on, and really flow. It's a blessing to be in this time of technological advancements. And if you're not using this age of information to your advantage, it's your fault.
Man, I feel the same way. I'm releasing records now, and I'm doing like spins and flips on music. And one of my favorite sites is whosampled.com.
Yeah,
I love Who Sampled. If y'all don't know about Who Sampled, you can
it's
type in
cool.
any song, and you can find out what record was sampled from that.
Right.
Oh, I've gone down rabbit holes of that.
Nah, for sure.
Leon, how do you want to be remembered as an artist?
I mean, the fact is I just want to be remembered. Let's be honest, there's a lot of artists from the 1940s and 50s. We have no idea who they were, but they were piping hot,
Facts.
I just want to build a pyramid, period. How you remember it, hopefully it's good. But I just want to make sure that regardless, it stands the test of time. That's why I play with a lot of classic themes, things that I consider to be timeless. And I'm going to continue to just keep chasing that mission of classic music, live instrumentation, honest songs. And then from there, it's up to the people how they remember me.
Talk about touring.
Yeah.
That's been, that's something that our company is completely built on, right? We've been touring for the past 10 years, doing all kinds of shows all over the world now. How has the touring life been for you thus far?
That shit's stressful, but it's a vibe. I mean, it's tight seeing people from places I've never been to know my music and associate with it in such a real way. Even going out to London, we sold out 2 shows in a row. And I mean, them people were singing them songs just back to back, every lyric. And it's just so cool to see how the music can travel. But let me tell you right now, for all the aspiring artists out there, touring is no joke. You got to be in a good mental space, physically right. Have a great team surrounding you because it's a team sport. Once again, it's a team sport. So shout out to everybody who's been involved, keeping this well-oiled machine going, because I couldn't do it alone, to be real.
Yeah, and you guys make sure when you see your favorite artist like Leon go on tour, get them tickets. Get them tickets fast. You know what I mean? That's what keeps this thing running. And as he said, touring is no joke, man. From touring with this thing for 10 years, I know it's taxing on the body. Sometimes the food options aren't the best.
Right.
And
there's always a way, though. I don't find a salad everywhere. You heard?
Yeah.
Don't blame the tour, my brother.
You got to be disciplined. You're right. You got to be disciplined for sure. Calling me out, man. I love it.
Yeah. Now I feel you. You don't want to try some of the, what I'm saying, the down south, soul food and this and that. But
it can get crazy down south.
Yo, you can find a salad anywhere. I'm telling you, it's there.
Oh man. All right, so we gonna get off my touring 15 pounds
All right.
and take it back to you. All right, man. So what are some of the hurdles that you've had? I mean, we're talking about, you know, a lot of the success, but this interlude is all about the real, man. So like,
Yeah, you know, let's get into the real.
What are some of the challenges that you faced, man, over this period of time where you trying to transition from acting, you know, being in more of the background on the producing to now stepping in the spotlight? I'm sure there have been some challenges.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let me tell you, brother. All right, so I'm about 20 years old. You know, I'm done with the whole Nickelodeon phase, but I'm dealing with a successful brand. People knowing me all over the world. I mean, I'm talking 80 different countries as a different name, right? As just a whole thing, right? So I had to really find a way to transition and break a brand as well as build a new one. And that takes time. And some people do it, you know, they get real raunchy, you know, they come out the gate, new tattoos, baby, you know, like, But for me, I felt like, all right, let me just duck off, let me learn, let me study, let me do some films, let me really get locked in and you know, really feed my brain as much as I could. And then when I felt comfortable again, around 25 years old, you know, I was on a show called Insecure with Issa Rae.
We remember the episode.
And I was neighbor bay, you know what I'm saying? So I was up there scantily clad. Shorty had me butt ass naked, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, this is that moment. You know, let's do this thing. And I started dropping records, and it felt good. It felt nice to see people really understand who I was as an artist outside of everything they've seen prior with my acting days. But I will say, breaking. It's so weird because like when we did the show, man, I was on the side of McDonald's Happy Meals, you know, on your cereal box. It was a huge brand to kind of try to live up to now, and I'm really glad that a lot of people stuck with me throughout the journey because it hasn't been easy.
Make some noise for making that transition, man. A lot of people can't do it. And you've been a shining example of being able to do that, man. Any other challenges? What about on the production side?
Production hasn't always been super challenging for me, but I think I had a meeting with Wendy Goldstein. She's an amazing executive who signed The Roots and all of these really big artists. And I sat down with her, and she told me something really important. She said, nobody's going to be able to make this sound but you. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, well, you're the kind of artist that's going to have to design, curate, and build your own thing. And I realized I couldn't just go to any producer and be like, yeah, send me a reference, I'll cut it, and it's a hit. Let's go on the road. I was going to have to really build something that was specific to me. And I found people who spoke the same language as music as me. And we built a tribe, and I stick with my tribe members. We lock in. Sometimes we bring people in here and there, but for the most part, I work with the same people because I feel like we're building a sound that's recognizable. And shout out to Wendy for letting me know that's how I had to do it.
Man, that's incredible advice. Now we got to get into, you know, talking about this deluxe, man. I guess what took so long in you know, adding the records and getting it ready?
Well, I was on tour. You know, I got back. I did my label meeting, and they were like, "Yeah, we need about 10 records for the deluxe." I said, "10? What? Oh,
that's a whole EP."
I said, "Hold on, that's another album, Jack." All right, so then I went back. You know, we got locked in, and then collaboration is one thing I will say when you're working with other artists. Like it's like a whole process of them absorbing the record, recording it, figuring out if they actually like it or not, the teams getting involved, and then even from a production standpoint, making sure that everything flows and is cohesive. I'd rather take my time than rush some bullshit out, you know, so yeah, that's why.
Did you have to, when approaching the MUTT Deluxe, did you have to like unlearn or rewire your brain, you know, to say, I want to add songs that are either in the same pocket as MUTT, or did you want to go completely different and, you know, add like a completely new sort of feel to the deluxe?
I mean, I don't allow myself to overthink. You're going to get what I'm feeling, and I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to just mix it, and hopefully y'all fuck with it.
Okay. Uh-huh. How many songs are on
10.
Over. So you really did. You went for the 10.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, okay. My man is a hard worker.
Yes, sir.
What? Yeah, tell us a little bit more. You know, like, I mean, we're gonna get into some.
Because
stuff.
I'll say right now. All right, so because it was starting to feel like its own body of music, but it's deeply rooted and connected with the original composition. I decided to give it its own adjacent title. It's called Heel, Heel, like the command for a dog. And I think it's just more so looking at the whole concept of what MUTT is, the whole process of being in a relationship and maybe women dating high-value men and trying to get them to sit, boy, down. Yo, relax, like you're mine now. You know what I mean? Like, so that's like a whole thing, and I feel like Heel's a play off of that. It's a command. You know, and it's hard to heal. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to get right. You know, so I wanted to make sure that was explained throughout these records and kind of play into the overall concept of what I was talking about on the original.
You know, when I'm playing the song, singing the song MUTT, you know, I'm a dog, I'm a mutt. How much of that is like internal? Is that like?
I just thought it was clever to keep it a bean.
Okay.
You know, like as a songwriter, you're like, oh, yeah. We get a little moment, you find something, you're like, oh yeah, no, this is cool. She said, take your time. What's the rush? I said, baby, I'm a dog. I'm a mutt. You ever seen a dog in a dog park? If you know, you know. So what I'm saying is like, I was thinking about it visually. I was like, oh, this is kind of tight. But then it made sense to me after hearing all of the different records. And you know, for me, I love some drama, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, if I'm writing a song, you ain't just gonna get a boring love song or even a I'm mad at you breakup record. Like, I feel like you gotta have nodes of the whole spectrum of emotions that we feel as human beings, and you hear a lot of that throughout the record. So I wanted to kind of just give a concept for people to live in, and it's nice that I'm being understood, you know?
Man, well, I've seen some fellas singing it at our shows, and they are like, he made one for me, dog.
Yeah, they singing that with their heart.
Yeah. What do you want people to? I know you just are more so like put it out in the world, see what happens. But is there anything that you want people to feel when they hear these new records?
You know, I try not to guess how people may feel, but I just hope you understand me. Music is a language, like anything else. Like I'm talking to you right now. When you listen to these records, I want you to feel me, to understand me. And that's all I can ask. Whether you like it or not is up to you. That's your preference. But being understood is the biggest thing.
I got one last question, Leon, man.
What's the deal?
One last question. When is the next album coming?
Ah, man, there's definitely some shit on the way.
All right.
There's some shit. We've been cooking up something crazy. So, I mean, before the end of the year, just look at your phone. You might see something else come up. You know
All right. Everybody, I need y'all to make some noise one time. Leon Thomas.
Yeah.
What's up, everyone? It's JABARI. Thank you guys so much for watching. You know, I just got word from the team, a very disturbing statistic. 88% of you that are watching our YouTube videos are not subscribed to the R&B Only channel. Okay, we need to fix that right now. Okay, so listen, I need you guys to just do us one small favor. Tap the subscribe button right now. For more content like this, tap like, all right?